In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we do have a couple of snow threats for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast that we do need to discuss. It is still early March, so these things are very practical. Although we've been in a warmer pattern, there is some cooldowns on the way that are going to allow for these things to be possible. Alongside that, we actually do have a couple of severe weather threats as well and other storms to discuss. Now, we are looking for new clients, commercial clients for our company, Prestige Weather. So if you are a business owner, organization owner, anything like that, be sure to check out the description in the pin and the pinned comment down below. We have a link to our website and our Calendly if you'd like to just set up a meeting right away. That'll also be located in the top right corner of your screen where you can click that and schedule a meeting today. Let's dive into things and take a look here at the upcoming pattern. And I mean, for today, we do have this coastal storm around here for the eastern states, and this thing is really a weaker low pressure system, but it's a monster as far as impacts and how far reaching it really is. I mean, we see rainfall happening in Canada and also as far south as Cuba, so definitely very far stretching there to say the least. The heaviest of the impacts, however, are located in this corridor for some of the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic, and some of the southeast as well. I would say the worst of the worst is here along the coast where this low pressure system is located. Again, although weak, it is creating some pretty impactful situations there. By the time we reach tomorrow, what we see is that this does actually lead towards some snowfall for the state of Maine, a state which is pretty classic for seeing snowfall even when no other states are seeing any. That northern area of Maine seems a lot more like Canada. It stretches much further north than the rest of those states. So that is why this northern half typically sees more snowfall than the rest of New England. And that's outside of the mountain ranges, of course. Those higher elevation areas do cash in a lot. And we do have our next line here of thunderstorm activity with this low developing over Oklahoma. We do see on the front end of things some thunderstorms possible for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, even Kansas here. And then to the north of this low, I mean, for Kansas, we're seeing some showery activity as well. Let's keep going though. Let's take it towards Friday on March 8th. And what we see is this low kind of slips to the south here towards eastern Texas here as a 1004 millibar low pressure center. Again, thunderstorm activity happening in this corridor now for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and perhaps even Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina there. Mostly expect showery activity in this northern corridor. This is to the north of that warm layer and likely no thunder within there or severe weather. This is likely to be more showery activity. And as far west as Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, we are seeing some snowfall due to this storm system. By the time we reach Saturday, what we see is that this low stretches up towards Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. It's kind of there on the intersection of those three states. We do see a cold front development underneath, a bit of a warm front here. And what this is doing is it's allowing for warmer air to stretch as far northward as Canada, below that warm front, and cold air is pouring in behind this cold front to the south. And likely, again, this area here is going to be where we're watching for potential thunderstorms and even severe weather there for the day on Saturday, March 9th. Now, what we see as we look further west is another storm system is approaching here in the northwest of the nation. So let's see how this plays out as we reach towards Sunday. And what we see here is we have a strong low, about a 995, some snowfall here across portions of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. I want to just backtrack with you here because overnight and into the morning hours of Sunday on the 10th, we had snowfall as far south as West Virginia, certainly the mid-Atlantic there, and Pennsylvania as well. Maybe even the Ohio Valley, with Ohio being impacted there. So a pretty big snow system for this time of year. It's elevation based, so this is mostly along those Appalachian mountain ranges. Definitely happening only in the highest of elevations here, but we do actually have some pretty heavy snowfall for the Adirondack Mountains of New York, the Green Mountains of Vermont, and the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where possibly even 10 inches plus will be possible. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's take this towards Monday on March 11th, and a much quieter day here. We have warmth really wanting to extend into the eastern states and especially the central states here, with a little bit of a trough and some lower pressure there in the northwest. This is allowing for some precipitation to take place in here, but as you can tell, a much quieter day there for Monday on March 11th. By the time I reach Tuesday on the 12th here of March, we see this warmth is extending even further northward here for the central and the eastern states, with snowfall and rainfall respectively depending on your elevation here out west. Let's take this towards Wednesday on the day for March 13th. We see some of this snowfall still happening for the Rockies now. And here we have some rainfall showers kind of for this corridor from the deep south through the Midwest and into the Great Lakes. And as we reach toward Thursday, we see a little bit more happening, and it originates from this northwest system that is now kind of crept into the deeper south of the Four Corner states and the south central states. I think a low is trying to take place somewhere in here, and we're seeing a warm front developing there. And this would allow for another round of thunderstorms for Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, our classic tornado alley. Although this doesn't look like a tornado outbreak as of now for me. It doesn't even look like really a tornadic event. Not a particularly strong event. But definitely some precipitation happening in here, and it only gets worse as we approach Friday on March 15th. We see some heavier thunderstorm activity for, again, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, into Mississippi, Tennessee, and Illinois there. Definitely a heavier thunderstorm and shower event. Not seeing any strong low pressure system in here, so definitely doesn't have that working in its favor. But as it heads eastward, it actually does develop a low here, 999 millibar low pressure center. Clearly a warm front, cold front situation where we see the cold air diving to the south. Again, the warm air extending up the east coast. And this could be yet another kind of thunderstorm event here for the deeper southeast into portions of the mid-Atlantic. And we do have colder air on the way, which is going to just amplify things. We have the cold, dry air stretching to the north there, west of the low. And to the east of the low here, we have that warm, humid air pushing to the north up the east coast. You can tell how this would create some swirl in that low pressure system. But not only that, we're just getting that dynamic that is leading towards instability in these areas as well. Now, the GFS model, we're going to get a little bit of an extended range here. We get storm number 2 right there for the 10th time frame. We get that little quieter period, followed by a low pressure system near the east coast, as you can see. This model has it over Maine, and we have a cold front extending all the way down the east coast, so maybe even potential thunderstorms stretching further north in the mid-Atlantic if this model is correct. We get into a bit of a colder pattern here, and we even get some clipper systems going on. More snowfall for the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, and Northeast here, perhaps around that kind of 18th, 19th time frame. And another one here as we approach that 20th time frame with a 990 up in Canada. Plenty of cold air to work with in this entire area, and snowfall for the Great Lakes and the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So a handful of potential snowfall events. Again, all of them are kind of elevation based, but certainly give the chance for flakes and even accumulating snowfall in different areas. The total precipitation here, as we just dive into it, I mean, the Northwest gets hammered with some slow moving storms, and that leads to a lot out there. And then we get a handful, maybe even more, of storms moving through this area from the south central states into the southeast, Ohio Valley, and even into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So this area in particular dealing with a multitude of different storms leading to a lot of precipitation in an area that already over the past week or two has seen quite a bit. So that activity does look to continue. Total snowfall on the European model, no surprise that we expect a lot here for the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and the Rockies there. But I think the truly surprising thing is as we dive into the Northeast here, we're going to just zoom in. And what we see is that, again, 10 to maybe even 15 inches for the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains here, and the White Mountains extending towards northern Maine. So those areas in particular, we're looking at potentially 10 inches plus. And even some potential snowfall for Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, into New York, and the rest of New England. So definitely an interesting turn of events as we lead with a kind of spring-like March here in the beginning half, maybe turning a little bit more wintry for the second half. It seems like that's the opposite of what it should be, but still really, really interesting nevertheless. We get a ton in the west here on our GFS model, of course. We're going to zoom into two separate regions here. We're going to go for the north central. Never mind, a little bit too far west there, I think, and that's not even the right model run. Let's see here. Yeah, once we get the full amount here. Let's go for the Ohio Valley. That's perfect. And what we see is that there's actually plenty happening in here on this particular model for northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, both peninsulas of Michigan there, seeing quite a bit of snowfall. And when we go ahead and zoom into the northeast, we see not only do the Adirondacks Green Mountains here, White Mountains, and Northern Maine see a lot. We're seeing more in these areas than the European model. We're also seeing a further stretching area of accumulating snowfall for New England. And we also see some activity for this area here, kind of west of the Finger Lakes regions there in New York, approaching kind of the Buffalo Rochester area, and then western Pennsylvania as a whole seeing an inch to maybe even 6 inches there, depending on where you're at, and then those mountain ranges of Maryland and West Virginia seeing about 2 to maybe 4 inches. So certainly a lot more happening here on the GFS model. Of course, this isn't going to be a coastal snowfall event, for deep into this to the south of the Mid-Atlantic, but definitely for the elevated areas, the more inland areas, this could be a snowy period to close out March, to say the least. So we're going to be watching that very, very closely over the coming days, among other things, of course, with the severe weather, the cold, the coastal storms, the overall thunderstorm activity. This is going to be a very active time for us here on the YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe for these daily updates, just like this one. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to also like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.